What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Matt Moreno. Matt, this is the home of the, wait for it, first place Los Angeles Dodgers, and we've got some exciting news today. Not quite official yet, but Tony Gonsolin expected back tonight, Wednesday night, expected to return from this bizarre sprained ankle in spring training. Coming at a pretty good time, I would say, for the Dodgers, in need of that fifth starter spot with Michael Grove going to the IL. So give me your reaction to the news that Tony Gonsolin expected to be activated on Wednesday.
Honestly, a little bit surprised. And obviously, the Dodgers sort of had a need for a fifth starter once Grove left his outing against the Cubs because of his growing issue. And that being said, kind of looking at where things were at, like Gonsolin had just started his rehab assignment. Maybe they would call up Gavin Stone or somebody else in the organization. Maybe they would just skip it. There was an off day Monday, and so you technically didn't need a fifth starter. And as much as we all know, the Dodgers enjoy giving their rotation full rest, if not an extra day of rest. Actually, excuse me. Of course, they always get full rest during the regular season. The Dodgers look to give them 1, sometimes 2 days of extra rest whenever possible. I guess, maybe that scenario could have been ruled out, but I thought they were just going to, kind of wait and see because, again, like Gonsolin only has 1 rehab start under his belt.
Yeah, and there were other options too, right? Like they could have gone to a guy like Andre Jackson. Hey, get us 3 or 4 innings, and then we'll do a bullpen game. As you mentioned, they had an off day, so you don't want to overload the bullpen in the middle of a stretch where you've got a bunch of games in a row. But you did have an extra day off. Of course, Tuesday they end up needing 5 innings from the bullpen, so maybe a good thing that they've got a guy who could at least give them some bulk. I'm curious. From Gonsolin, I believe is 1 rehab start that he made. They were expecting him to make multiple rehab starts. He only makes 1. Grove goes on the IL. Gonsolin ends up getting brought back. He hovered, I was it 60 pitches ish that he made in his 1 rehab start. And so, I mean, what's the most you think the Dodgers could expect? Like 4 innings feels like best case scenario from Gonsolin.
Yeah, I think if he gets through 4 innings, then great. If he can pitch into the 4th inning, then they'll take it. And it's hard because, you look at like the rehab start, I believe it was like 57 pitches in the game or something like that. And then he did throw more in the bullpen.
Okay.
But, pitch count, like theoretically he is built up to, call it 60, 65 pitches. But once like adrenaline and all that kicks in a real game, that kind of, means something, if you will. No disrespect to the
AAA. With all due respect to AAA and the Oklahoma City Dodgers, man.
In Gonsolin's case, a game that means something. That changes things, right? Like you're not going to necessarily get the 65 pitches that you say he's sort of, earmarked for. And that's why I thought, maybe they wouldn't necessarily do this just yet because, it is, I don't want to say a risk, but you are rushing something. And in my opinion, and like I alluded to in our live show the other night, I sort of felt like this in a while feels like the first sort of decision the Dodgers made where, like, I don't want to call it like panicking by any means, because like you said, especially now they're in first place, they're on a winning streak. Like things are definitely trending up, but it almost feels like, it seems like, do they feel, sort of the sense of urgency that we have been saying, you kind of need to have this season because the disparity between the Dodgers and the other teams in the NL West and the other teams in the National League just isn't as big as it has been in previous years.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is curious. I mean, it feels like the type of decision where the Dodgers say, hey, we're not going to jeopardize anything. We're going to play this cool. And again, we kind of talked about, and we both said, hey, the fact that it's an ankle injury that he's recovering from and not an elbow or a shoulder probably gives them a little bit more leeway to rush this back, because it feels like they kind of took the ultimate slow route to begin with how long this injury ended up sort of dragging on. The fact that he's already up to 65 pitches, 60-ish pitches with the bullpen, whatever that end number ended up being, makes it feel like, okay, maybe there's a little bit more leeway to quote unquote rush this, given the news that Michael Grove, who was replacing Pepio, who was replacing Gonsolin, was going to be on the injured list. Real quick, as we close this out, what are your expectations for Gonsolin this season? Obviously, this is a guy that in 2022, incredible year, 2.14 ERA. The expected ERA was 3.12. The FIP was 3.28. 16-1 record across 24 starts. I know you like that number. And even looking at the StatCast, a lot of red on his Baseball Savant page. The exit velocity was not great, but other than that, everything is 70th percentile or above when we're talking hard hit rate, expected ERA, expected batting average, expected slug, barrel rate, etc., etc., etc. I know there are people that are still skeptical of a guy, Matt, that now has 59 major league appearances and a 2.5 ERA. Where are you at on Gonsolin heading into this season and kind of what the Dodgers might be able to expect from him?
Yeah, I'm not expecting, the year that he had last season. And obviously, especially the first half. I mean, he was lights out and he earned his first career All-Star game selection. I think, he'll probably ultimately settle around a 2.5 ERA by the end of the season. The exit velocity stuff is a little concerning. I think especially with the shifts being limited this season, where you obviously have to keep two infielders on both sides and they have to stay on the dirt and all that. He could be somebody who, some of those balls that maybe were turned into outs last season are now hits. And so is he facing more traffic? And that being said, he was very good at getting out of those situations last year when he did, when the runners especially were in scoring position. But, he's going to be somebody the Dodgers really need to pitch very well. Is the simplest way I can put it. It with Noah Syndergaard sort of being a little bit of a roller coaster. Like he's on one hand you look at he's giving you quality starts, but on the other hand, like the rest of the statistics aren't really matching up with saying, hey, well, it was 6 innings and 3 runs this time out. And Dustin May, obviously, like we've touched on, I believe is a little bit of a wild card. The potential is certainly there, but this is still his first season back from Tommy John surgery. First full season, excuse me.
Yeah. So give me, you said 2.5 ERA. I'm guessing you meant 3.5 ERA for Gonsolin this year is kind of where you think he settles, or do you mean 2.5?
No, I mean 2.5. I think 2.5. Okay. I think he could still be around it because he finished at 2.14. You said last year.
2.14 last year.
So I think it'll go up. I mean, it's a little bullish. I'll admit. If it ends up being 2.75, it's not gonna fully shock me. I think he can keep it under 3.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, I've been a pro Gonsolin guy the whole time. The highest his ERA has been in 4 major league seasons is 3.23. The expected ERA 3.8, 3.3, 3.6, 3.1. Those are all very good numbers. The FIP has been good every year except for 2021 when it crept up to 4.5. And so I'm with you. I think an ERA, I would say around 3, I think is where it lands. Maybe the high 2s, the low 3s. But look, that would be fantastic if you get a pitcher. I mean, if you look at the number of guys in all of Major League Baseball last year who sort of qualified for pitching awards at the end, and the number of guys who had an ERA under 3, it's not a long list. And so for Gonsolin, if he can stay in that range, Yu Darvish was 20th in Major League Baseball with the 3.10 ERA among qualified pitchers. So I'm with you. I'm bullish on Gonsolin. Do I think as a guy who is striking out just under a batter an inning, do I think some of these rules like the shift ban might not help him, might hurt him more than some others? Yes, but it would have to be a massive regression for him to even get to 3. So I feel like we're baking in a little bit of coming back down to earth, if you will. But as I've said, I've always been high on Gonsolin. I think he's going to be exactly what the Dodgers need. And the biggest question is just going to be health. The sprained ankle was a fluke for him, but this is a guy who's dealt with some shoulder stuff off and on. So can they get a full season out of Gonsolin? I think is kind of the biggest question that I've got. He made 24 starts last season, 130 innings. If they could get, 26, 27 starts out of Gonsolin this year, given that he's already missed 4, I think that would be a huge success for him. And if it's around a 3 ERA, it's a massive win for the Dodgers. So again, the big news for the Dodgers is that Tony Gonsolin expected to be activated on Wednesday to start against the Pirates. Dodgers looking for their 4th win in a row. Gonsolin hoping to be the guy that can get them 3 or 4 innings into the game. Maybe Andre Jackson piggybacks and they see what they've got from their bullpen from there. But again, Tony Gonsolin expected back Wednesday, which is good news for the Dodgers. You can find out more about this and everything else Dodgers over on DodgerBlue.com. And of course, please subscribe, ring the notification bell here as well. That's Matthew Moreno. My name is Jeff Spiegel. As always, thanks for joining us and go Dodgers.